What would you do if your son-in-law introduced you as an old man in front of guests and then lied about his own age? I waited 3 years. I waited silently. And now he sits in a room where everyone knows his real age, right across from me. If this story touched your soul, click subscribe and let me know in the comments which city or country you're listening from. I'm genuinely curious where you're watching from. I'm grateful to everyone who comments. My name is Margaret Sullivan. They call me Midge most of the time. I'm 63 years old, and I live in the town of Salem, Oregon. I worked at a real estate company for 40 years, the last 15 as a partner. When I retired, I had 24 properties in my portfolio. No one knew this. I didn't tell anyone, because I was a quiet woman, modest. I raised my daughter Emily on my own. My husband Tom passed away from a heart attack when Emily was only 5. There was no insurance money, and our savings were limited. But I worked. I worked day and night. Emily went to the best schools. She graduated from Stanford, and then she met Brad. Brad Mitchell. He was an attractive man, I must admit, when I first saw him. Tall, broad-shouldered, blue eyes. His hair was that perfect shade of blonde, either natural or the work of a very expensive hairdresser. His smile was captivating, but something in his eyes bothered me. It was a very small detail. When he talked to someone, his eyes constantly scanned the room, as if he was always looking for someone more important. Emily was in love. She was so in love that she couldn't see Brad's flaws, or maybe she didn't want to see them. "Mom, he's amazing," she told me a week after we met. "He's in the tech industry, very successful, but also very humble. He doesn't even tell anyone his age." That sentence set off an alarm in me. Why wouldn't someone tell their age? But I didn't say anything. Emily was happy. That was enough for me. Brad and Emily got married in June 2022. The wedding was spectacular. It was held at a boutique hotel in Portland. I covered most of the expenses, but I didn't mention that either. Emily knew, of course, but Brad didn't. Emily had told him. It was from our savings. It was at that wedding that I first truly felt humiliated. As dinner was about to begin, Brad stood up with a champagne glass in his hand. He was standing right in front of me. All the guests fell silent. Everyone was looking at him. "Friends," he said with a smile, "first of all, thank you for coming. Tonight is very special for me, for us." Applause erupted. I was smiling too, just like everyone else. "And, of course," Brad continued, "I'd like to introduce my family. This is my mom, Linda, and my dad, Robert. They're 72 years old, and they came all the way from Massachusetts." His family stood up, and everyone clapped. Linda and Robert really did look 72, gray-haired, wrinkled faces, but a warm, loving couple. Then Brad turned to me. "And here's Emily's mother, Midge," he said. His voice had changed slightly. It was less friendly and more formal. "She's kind of, well, our older version, I guess." Laughter rose from the room. Light, polite laughter, but Brad continued. "Midge is 63. I know. My family's a bit older, but Midge isn't bad either. She still does her own thing, right, Midge? She runs her own business." As if I were a grandchild, a little child. Emily was laughing. She looked at me then, an apologetic expression in her eyes, but she kept laughing. She was holding Brad's arm. I smiled too. I nodded. I clapped. But something inside me broke. Throughout the meal, Brad's family didn't talk to me. Linda didn't come over to me even once. Robert didn't even look at me while drinking his beer. It was as if I had become invisible. As if I were a worthless object. And Brad called me old mother-in-law all night. He was joking, of course. Everyone laughed. But each time, that word made me feel a little smaller. Old. There was also the age issue. 2 weeks after the wedding, Emily and Brad moved into their new home. They had bought a beautiful house in Beaverton. 3 bedrooms, large garden. Emily invited me over for dinner. "Mom, come see our house," she said on the phone. "Brad is so excited. He'll make a special meal for you." I went. Of course I went. The meal was delicious. Brad was a really good cook. Grilled salmon, fresh vegetables, and homemade bread. He opened a bottle of wine, we talked, and we laughed. Emily was very happy. But then their neighbors arrived. Jim and Sandra Peterson, a middle-aged friendly couple. Jim was an engineer, and Sandra was a teacher. They had run into Brad in the garden, and he had invited them in. "Meet them," said Brad. "This is my mother-in-law, Midge, Emily's mother." "Nice to meet you," said Sandra. "How old are you?" It was an odd question, but I answered politely, 63. Sandra shook her head. "Oh, you look so young. I'm 58, but I think I look older than you." We laughed. Then Jim turned to Brad. "So how old are you, Brad? Are you the same age as Emily?" Brad paused. Just for a second, but I noticed. 34, he said. Emily smiled. "Yes, I'm 33 too. We're almost the same age." Jim nodded, and they continued talking, but I was watching Brad's face. He had told a very small, very brief lie. But why? Later, on the way home, I kept thinking about it. Was Brad really 34? They had met 3 years ago. Was Brad 31 then? Something was missing, but I didn't investigate. Maybe I should have. Maybe then everything would have been different. The next 2 years passed quietly. Emily and Brad seemed happy. They had good jobs, a nice house, and went on vacations. I lived my own life, as before, quietly, but Brad's way of looking at me never changed. At every family dinner, every holiday gathering, that condescending tone was always there. "Midge, come along, but don't tire yourself out, you're getting older." "Midge, you don't have to carry that. Let me carry it. It's too heavy for you." "Midge, sit down. We'll handle it. You rest." Emily didn't say anything. Maybe she didn't notice. Maybe she didn't want to notice. But I noticed. Every word, every glance. And then, 3 years later, that party came. It was October 2025, Emily's 36th birthday. Brad wanted to throw a big party at their house. About 40 people were invited, work colleagues, neighbors, and friends from college. I was invited too. Of course. On the night of the party, when I arrived at their house, it was packed. Music was playing, people were laughing, and wine was flowing. Emily greeted me at the door. "Mom, you look beautiful," she said, hugging me. "Thank you, sweetie. Happy birthday." Brad was in the kitchen. He was making cocktails. He waved when he saw me. "Hey, Midge, welcome. Grab yourself a drink. Make yourself comfortable." I smiled. I took a glass of wine. I went into the hall. I met a few people. Everyone was polite and warm. It was a lovely evening. But then, around 9 p.m., Brad gave another speech. He turned off the music. Everyone fell silent. Brad stood up with a glass in his hand, just like he did at the wedding. "Everyone, may I have a moment of your time?" he said with a smile. Applause and yes, shouts. "Today is my beautiful wife's birthday. Emily is 36. And I'm 37. Laughter. 37? My eyes locked on Brad. What had he just said? 37? But 3 years ago, he told his neighbors he was 34. If he's 37 now, then 3 years ago, should he have been 34 or 35? The math didn't add up. Brad continued talking. Emily and I are very lucky. We have a wonderful life. We have wonderful friends. And of course, Emily's mother, Midge, is here too. No matter how old she is, she still comes to the party." More laughter. This time Emily didn't laugh. She looked at me. There was something in her eyes. Shame? Apology? But I wasn't listening anymore. My mind was stuck on Brad's age. From 34 to 37. 3 years had passed. But that was too much, 1 year short. Then I realized. Brad had lied, both at the wedding and now. But which age was correct? When the party ended, everyone had left. Emily was washing dishes in the kitchen. Brad was smoking a cigarette in the garden. I sat quietly, thinking, why would someone lie about their age? And then an idea came to me. What if Brad were much older than Emily? The next day, as soon as I got home, I turned on my computer. I'm no stranger to technology. If you work in real estate for 40 years, you learn every search engine, every database. Brad Mitchell, Oregon. He should have been born in 1988 if he was really 37 years old. I searched on Google. I searched on social media. I checked LinkedIn. Brad's profile came up. It said 37 years old, but there was no birth date. That's odd. Then I checked Facebook. Brad's account was set to private. There wasn't much information, but there were old photos. I found a photo from 2010, Brad at his university graduation, with his friends. The caption said, "Finally done. If he graduated in 2010, he should be 22 years old." So born in 1988, but I found another photo. It was from 2008. Brad was at a bar. He was drinking with his friends. The caption read, 21st birthday bash. 21st birthday, 2008. So Brad was born in 1987. No, wait. If his 21st birthday was in 2008, then Brad must have been born in 1987. So, how old is he now? 2025 minus 1,987 equals 38. Brad was 38 years old, not 37. But why was he lying? Then I noticed something else. Brad had a work history on his LinkedIn profile. His first job started in 2009 as a junior developer. If he was 22 inches 2009, that made sense. But he should have graduated in 2009, not 2010. I was confused. I dug deeper. I researched university records. I looked at Oregon State University's graduate lists. Brad's name was on the 2011 graduates list, not 2010. So Brad graduated in 2011. If he graduated at 22, then he must have been born in 1989. But his 21st birthday photo was from 2008. Two things could be true. Brad had finished university late. Or something else. I did some more research. I tried to look at Oregon DMV records, but I didn't have access. But then I did a little trick. I had a friend from the real estate business, Jerry. He was still working and had access to some databases. I sent him a message. "Jerry, I have a favor to ask. Can you find the birth date of someone named Brad Mitchell? He lives in Beaverton, Oregon." Jerry replied the next day. "Midge, I found it. Brad Allen Mitchell. Date of birth, the 12th of March, 1985. 1,985. I couldn't believe my eyes. If Brad was born in 1985, then how old is he now? 2025 minus 1,985 equals 40. 40. Brad was 40 years old, and he was telling Emily, me, and everyone that he was 37. So, what would you do? If you found out your son-in-law was lying about his age, would you tell your daughter, or would you just keep quiet? I thought about it for 3 days. Should I tell Emily, or should I stay silent? If I told her, Emily's heart would be broken. Her marriage would be shaken. Maybe Brad was lying for an innocent reason. Maybe he was afraid of getting old. Maybe he just wanted to look young for a shallow reason. But a lie is a lie. And a man who called me old was hiding his own age. Two-faced. In the end, I made a decision. I would wait. I would wait silently. And I would find the right time. Because I knew that one day Brad would make a mistake. And when he did, I would be ready. 6 months passed. I didn't say a word. I talked to Emily normally. And to Brad, too. Everything was the same as before. But I was different now. I was no longer the quiet, pitiful, old mother-in-law. I was now the hunter. At every family dinner, I watched Brad. I watched how he spoke, how he lied, and how he manipulated people. And I learned something. Brad wasn't just lying about his age. He was lying about other things, too. One evening, Brad was talking about work. "I got a promotion at the company last year," he said. "Now I'm a senior product manager." But his LinkedIn profile still said product manager. Another evening, he said, "I went on a business trip to Boston last week." But Emily later told me Brad was home that week. The meetings were online. Little lies, insignificant lies. But when they were added up, they told a story. Brad was a chronic liar. And then the big opportunity came. It was April 2025. Emily and Brad hosted a spring party at their home, another crowded gathering. This time, Brad's family was coming too. Linda and Robert were flying in from Massachusetts. Emily called me. "Mom, please come. Brad's family wants to see you." I went. The party started in the afternoon. There was a barbecue in the garden and a buffet inside. About 30 people had come. Brad's family was there too. When Linda and Robert saw me, they smiled politely. "Hello, Midge, how are you?" "I'm fine, thank you." We started talking. Linda was a retired nurse. Robert was a former banker. They were polite but distant. It was as if I wasn't on their level. Then, after lunch, Brad stood up again. "Everyone, I have an announcement to make." Everyone turned around. Brad was smiling, holding Emily's hand. Emily and I were so excited because Brad paused, creating a dramatic moment. "We're expecting a baby next year?" The room erupted. Applause, cheers, celebrations. Emily was crying, overcome with joy. Linda and Robert jumped up and hugged Emily. I clapped too, but my mind was elsewhere. A baby. This was changing everything, because if Brad continued to lie to Emily and my family, that lie would also affect my grandchild. The time had come. After the party ended, everyone had left. Only Brad, Emily, Linda, Robert, and I remained. We were sitting in the kitchen, drinking tea. "Midge," Linda said, "you must be so happy. Your first grandchild." "Yes," I said, smiling. "I'm very happy." Robert turned to Brad. "So how old are you now, Brad? 37 or 38? Brad paused, and then it happened. 37, he said. "I'll be 38 next month." A lie. Another lie. I sipped my tea in silence. Then, in a very calm voice, I asked, "Brad, when is your birthday?" Brad looked at me. I saw a hint of unease in his eyes. "In March," he said. "Which day?" "March 12th. "Ah," I said. "The 12th of March, 1985. Silence. The kitchen suddenly became very quiet. Linda's teacup hung in the air. Robert frowned. Emily turned to me, her eyes wide with surprise. "And Brad?" Brad's face paled. "What did you say?" Brad asked. His voice trembled, but he tried to smile. 1985. "No, I was born in 1988. I pulled a file out of my bag. Yes, I was prepared. I had been preparing for 6 months. Inside were Brad's DMV record, a copy of his birth certificate with Jerry's help, LinkedIn screenshots, and those old Facebook photos. I placed the file on the table. "Brad," I said calmly, "you were born on the 12th of March, 1985, so you're 40 years old now, not 37. Emily jumped to her feet. "Mom, what are you saying?" I handed the file to Emily. "Look." Emily took the file, trembling. She started flipping through the pages. She saw the DMV record. She saw the birth certificate. Her eyes widened. "Brad," Emily said, her voice breaking, is this true?" Brad stood up. "Emily, Is it true?" Emily shouted. I'd never heard her yell like that before. My calm, polite Emily was now trembling, crying, and angry. Brad raised his hands. Okay. Yes, I'm 40 years old. But Emily, listen. 3 years. Emily's voice cracked. You lied to me for 3 years. Before we got married, and after we got married. Linda and Robert were shocked. Robert stood up. Brad, son, what does this mean? Brad turned to his father. Dad, I just wanted to look young. Everyone in the tech industry is young. Being 40, it would hurt my career. Nonsense! I shouted. Everyone turned to me. I was standing now too. 3 years of silence. 3 years of humiliation, it was all coming out now. You called me old man for 3 years, I said. My voice was trembling but determined. In front of guests, in front of friends, in front of family. You humiliated me. You belittled me. You made fun of me for being 63. Brad tried to speak, but I continued. At your wedding, in front of everyone, you introduced me as the older version. They laughed. They all laughed. And you. You said you were 34 that night. But you were actually 37. Now you're 40. And you still say you're 37. Why? Brad's face flushed. I just... Because you're a liar. My voice was rising. You're a manipulator. And I watched your game for 3 years. Every lie, every belittlement, every insult. Linda buried her face in her hands. Oh my God. Robert slammed his fist on the table. Brad, how could you do such a thing? Emily was still holding the file. Tears were streaming down her cheeks. She kept turning the pages. Then she found a photo. From 2008, Brad's 21st birthday bash photo. Is this your 21st birthday? Emily asked in a trembling voice. Brad didn't answer. Answer me. Emily threw the photo at him. Was it your 21st birthday in 2008? Brad lowered his head. Yes. Then you were born in 1987, right? No. It's complicated. I started college late. Liar. Emily slammed her fist on the table. I'd never seen her like this before. Her face was bright red, her hands clenched into fists. You're a liar. You lied to me. To everyone. I pulled another page from the file. Emily, what's this? Emily took the page. She blinked and read it. This is a mortgage application. From 2019. Emily looked at me. What does this mean? Read it, I said. Emily read it. And then her face flushed. Brad, this application says your annual income is $120,000, but you told me it was $95,000. Brad stumbled backward. That's just... And here, I continued, pulling out another page, is Brad's 2020 tax return. Jerry found this one too. Income, $140,000. Emily was shaking now. You always told me, we don't have enough money. We have to save. I gave up my vacation. I didn't buy a new car. Because you said, our budget is tight. Robert stood up. Brad, is this true? Did you lie to your wife about your income? Brad couldn't answer. He just stood there, head down. Emily continued flipping through the file. Then she found another document. A bank statement. But not their account. An account she didn't recognize. What's this? Emily asked. Wells Fargo, account number 4782. This isn't our account. I took a deep breath. It's Brad's secret account. Emily turned to me. What? Jerry looked into the bank records too. Brad has an account you don't know about, and money is being withdrawn from that account regularly. Where? I didn't answer. I just handed her another page. It listed the names of online poker sites, Poker Stars, 888 Poker, and Party Poker, and next to each one, large sums of money. Emily read the page. Her face went pale. Brad, Emily said, her voice now cold, are you gambling? Brad lifted his head. Panic was in his eyes. Emily, Answer me, Emily shouted. Are you gambling? There was a long silence. Then Brad spoke in a very quiet voice. Yes. Linda covered her mouth with her hands. Oh my God. No, not again. Robert jumped to his feet. Again? Brad, you promised us. You got treatment. You weren't going to gamble anymore. Brad turned to his father. Dad, I stopped. I really did. But then the pandemic hit. We were stuck at home. And I got bored. One night, I just played one hand. Just one hand. But then what? Emily was trembling. Then what happened, Brad? I lost, Brad said. And then I tried to win it back, and I lost more. Emily looked at the file. She tried to add up the numbers on the pages. Then she turned to me. Mom, these numbers, what's the total? I had already calculated it. $75,000 over the past 3 years. Emily stumbled backward. She sat down in the chair. She brought her hands to her face. 75,000, she said. Her voice had turned to a whisper. $75,000. Linda started crying. Robert approached Brad. Are you a monster? Did you gamble away your pregnant wife's money? Brad remained silent. I pulled out one last document from the file. Emily, I said gently, I want you to see this document. Emily lifted her head. Her eyes were red and swollen. She took the document. What is this? She asked. This, I said, is the transaction history of the $30,000 I gave you after your wedding. Emily's eyes widened. Mom, how did you... Jerry tracked the bank records. That $30,000 went into your account, but 2 days later, it was transferred to Brad's account, and a week later, it was completely gone. Emily looked at Brad. You gambled away the money my mother gave you? Brad said nothing. That money was mine! Emily jumped to her feet. My mom gave me that money. For the future. For the baby. And you lost it gambling. Emily, I was going to win it back. Shut up! Emily raised her hand. Not another word. Not another word. Robert gripped Brad's arm tightly. Brad, you're finished. Completely finished. Linda was still crying. She turned to me. Midge, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I really didn't know. I know, Linda, I said. You're good people, but Brad is sick. Emily looked at me. Mom, how long have you known? 6 months, I said. I started researching as soon as I found out his age. And Jerry helped. We found everything. Why didn't you tell me? Because, I said, there had to be proof. If I'd come with just my suspicions, Brad would have denied it. And you would have believed him. But now, there's proof, and he can't deny it anymore. Emily shook her head. Then she turned to Brad. Go, Emily said. Her voice was very calm, but beneath it there was great anger. Go now. Get out of this house. Emily. Go! Emily shouted. Get out! I never want to see you again. Brad started crying. Emily, please. I'll get treatment. I'll go to Gamblers Anonymous. I swear. Your promises mean nothing. Emily was trembling. You lied. For 3 years. About your age, your income, everything. And you stole my money. You stole the money my mother gave me. Brad knelt on the floor. Please, Emily. I love you. We're having a baby. We're a family. You're not family. Emily was crying, but her voice was firm. You're a liar. You're a thief. And you can't be a father to this baby. Robert helped Brad to his feet. Come on, son. You're coming with us. Brad turned to me. The hatred in his eyes was clear now. This is your fault, he said. You old witch. You ruined everything. You're jealous because you're alone, without a husband, and you couldn't stand my happiness. Shut up! Robert slapped Brad across the face. I was shocked. Linda was shocked too, even Emily. Robert had never looked so angry. His face was bright red, and his hands were shaking. You, Robert said, pointing at Brad. You're a disgrace to my family. I raised you and taught you values, and you became a gambler, a liar, and a thief. Brad kept crying. Dad, I'm not your father, Robert said. I'm not your father right now. Maybe one day, if you get treatment, if you change, maybe one day you'll be my son again. But right now, you're nothing. Linda stood up, holding Robert's arm. Robert, please, he's still our son. No, Linda, said Robert. He's not our son anymore. At least not right now. He looked at Brad. Come on. We're going to the hotel. We're flying back to Massachusetts tomorrow. And you're coming with us. But no discussion. Robert dragged Brad toward the door. Linda followed them. But before they stepped outside, she stopped. She turned to me. Midge, Linda said. Her voice was trembling. I want to tell you something. Go ahead, Linda. I'm really sorry for what Brad did to you, for calling you old man, for belittling you. We should have stood up to him, but we didn't. Because we're old too, and we too are sometimes looked down on by young people. My eyes welled up. Linda. But you, Linda said, you're a strong woman. You didn't stay silent. You stood up for yourself. And I'm proud of you. Linda hugged me. I hugged her back. Two old women, in the middle of the kitchen, crying. Then Linda left. The door closed, and Emily collapsed to the floor. I held Emily for hours. She cried, screamed, and trembled. I cried too. 3 years of anger and 3 years of pain all came out that night. Mom, Emily finally said, I'm sorry. For what? For what Brad did to you. I should have seen it. But I didn't. Because I was in love. And I was blind. No, sweetie, I said, stroking her hair. You're not to blame. Brad was a manipulative person. He deceived you. But you saw, you knew. I only suspected. But I had no proof, so I waited. Emily lifted her head. You waited 3 years? Yes. Why? Why didn't you say anything right away? I took a deep breath. Because you seemed happy, and I didn't want to ruin your happiness. But then I saw that Brad was continuing to lie, and I knew it couldn't go on forever. One day the truth would come out. Emily placed her hands on her stomach. The baby. So what happens now? She asked. Now, I said, you have to make a decision. Do you want to stay with Brad, or... No. Emily shook her head. No, I want out of this marriage, but the baby. This baby deserves a father. Emily, I said, holding her hands. This baby doesn't need a father. It needs a good parent, and you are a wonderful mother, with or without Brad. But what will people say? If they find out I'm a single mother? Let them talk, I said. I was a single mom too, and you turned out great. This baby will too. Emily cried again, but this time her tears were different. Sad, but also liberating. Then Emily hugged me. She hugged me tightly. Thank you, Mom, she said. You saved me. No, sweetie, I said. I just showed you the truth. You're the one who saved yourself. You made your own decision. That night, I stayed at Emily's house. I slept in the guest room. But I couldn't really sleep. I thought about Brad, about Emily, and about myself. For 3 years, I was an old woman. Someone no one cared about, no one listened to. But now I was a warrior. And I had won. 2 weeks later, Emily filed for divorce. Brad objected, of course. Lawyers got involved. A long, exhausting process began. But I was by Emily's side, at every hearing, every meeting. And something interesting happened. Brad's lawyer tried to say that I was old and unreliable. This woman is a poor old thing. Her memory is weak. She misinterprets the documents. But I was prepared. I presented all the documents to the court. DMV records, tax returns, bank statements, with Emily's permission, and money transfers from gambling sites. Everything. And not just the documents. I brought witnesses too. Jerry, my real estate friend. He explained how Brad found the documents. Brad's former coworker, Mark. He explained how Brad lied at work, falsifying his age. Even Jim and Sandra Peterson, his neighbors. They remembered how Brad said 34 at that dinner. The judge looked at the documents. He looked at the witnesses. Then he looked at Brad. Mr. Mitchell, said the judge, you lied to the court. You misrepresented your age. You concealed your income. You hid your gambling debt. Brad couldn't say anything. The judge continued. In this case, I rule in favor of Mrs. Emily Mitchell. The house will go to her. Alimony payments will be made by Mr. Mitchell, and custody of the child will be granted entirely to the mother. Mr. Mitchell may only see the child during supervised visits, and only if he can prove he is undergoing treatment for his gambling. Brad jumped to his feet. This is unfair, that old woman. Silence. The judge banged his gavel. Mr. Mitchell, if you say one more word, I will have you arrested for contempt, and I am noting your disrespect towards Miss Sullivan. If you ever use the word old or any other derogatory term towards this woman again, she will have the right to file a defamation suit. Brad fell silent, and I smiled. As we left the courtroom, Emily hugged me. Mom, she said, you're an amazing woman. You're like a hero. No, sweetie, I said. I'm just a mother, and I'm protecting you. Today is October 2025. Exactly 1 year has passed since that party. Emily's house is still in Beaverton, but Brad doesn't live there anymore. Emily is alone, but she's happy. The baby was born 2 months ago. A girl. Her name is Margaret. My name. This morning, I visited Emily and Margaret. Emily greeted me at the door, holding the baby in her arms. Mom, she said with a smile. Come in. Margaret can't wait to see you. I went inside. The house was clean and bright. It was very different from the old house, because Brad's darkness was gone. Emily handed Margaret to me. As I held the baby, my eyes filled with tears. Hello, little lady, I said. I'm your grandmother. Margaret looked at me. Her blue eyes were bright, like Emily's eyes. Mom, Emily said, I want to tell you something. Go ahead, sweetie. Thank you for bringing Brad out into the open, for saving me. If it weren't for you, I'd still be living in those lies. No, Emily, I said. You saved yourself. I just opened the door. Emily smiled. Maybe, but you're a strong woman, and I'm proud of you. Margaret will be proud of you too. At that moment, all the pain, all the humiliation, it was all worth it. Because I was no longer the old mother-in-law. I was Margaret Sullivan, 63 years old, strong, independent, and someone who never stays silent. And now, I'm a grandmother, little Margaret's grandmother, and I will teach her to be strong, to stand up for herself, to never, ever stay silent. There's one more thing I need to tell you about Brad. After the court ruling, Brad moved to Portland. He lives in a small apartment, alone. He was fired from his job. The company found out about his gambling problem, and the court records are public. Now he works at another company, for a much lower salary. Linda and Robert took him to Massachusetts. He stayed at a rehabilitation center for 3 months. He received treatment for his gambling addiction. Now he attends Gamblers Anonymous meetings twice a week. And he sends Emily child support every month, $2,500, as required by the court order. But he doesn't see Margaret, because he's still gambling, secretly. How does Emily know this? Because I'm keeping track. With Jerry's help, we're monitoring Brad's bank transactions, and he's still transferring money to online poker sites. Emily filed a lawsuit, and Brad's visitation rights were completely revoked. But the most interesting part is what's happening on his social media. Brad still says he's 37 years old on Instagram. He's still lying. But the comments, the comments are amazing. Because after the divorce, Emily revealed everything. She shared a long post on Facebook and Instagram about Brad's lies, his gambling debts, and his manipulations. Everything. And people reacted. Brad's friends turned their backs on him. His coworkers stopped talking to him. Brad is alone. And I'm not alone anymore. Emily is around me now. Margaret is there. And Jerry, Linda. Yes, Linda is still in touch with me. And all my friends are there. I'm a 63-year-old woman, but I'm strong, and no one can call me old anymore. Now let me ask you, if your son-in-law had humiliated you for years, and then it turned out he was a liar, what would you do? Would you forgive him? Or Would you, like me, wait quietly for the right moment? Some people tell me, Midge, you were so cruel. You ruined Brad. But I don't think so. I just brought the truth to light. Brad destroyed himself. With his lies, his gambling, and his arrogance. I just held up the mirror. And sometimes, the greatest revenge is telling the truth. Sometimes, silence isn't power. Speaking up is power. Sometimes, waiting is not weakness. It is strategy. And sometimes, a 63-year-old old woman can be much stronger than anyone imagines. If this story touched your soul, please let me know in the comments. Do you think Midge did the right thing? Or did she go too far? What would you have done? And one more question. Has anyone ever lied to you? And how did you uncover that lie? Share your story with me.